welcome back to another Pure Theorycrafting for Marvel Avengers Alliance 2. Like all other Pure Theorycrafting videos that I do, these are focused on an individual character where we go through and we do a fairly in-depth analysis of their moves, of their abilities, of their EISOs, of their passives, their stats, anything that defines that character as unique, and we try to figure out how that character is intended to be used and what ways we can tweak them to use them effectively in other methods. Now, today is going to really show off the theory crafting side of the show. Specifically, we're going to look at Agent 13. Now, Sharon Carter is the PvP reward for the current PvP season. If you're joining us after the current season, this is Season 5. Take a look at the bottom. There are 13, almost 14 days left in it. Because she's the PvP reward, we can see her on the hero screen, but only parts of her. We can see her base stats, we can see her passive, and we can see her abilities. We won't be able to go over her EISO color slots, but from her stats and from her abilities, we can probably infer most of what kind of set bonuses will be useful with her. First, because she is a PvP reward hero, because she isn't currently available, like Nova is, we're going to take a quick look at her. She is the reward here. If we go into reward info, we can take a look at what it takes to unlock a PvP reward hero, specifically Vibranium rank. Rank 5 through rank 1 will get her guaranteed. S rank will get her 3-star ability guaranteed. Now, the real benefit of S rank, because the 3-star ability, it's 1500 AP. Is that a fair amount? Yeah, there's better things I could spend it on, but it's not something that I can't farm. The real benefit to S rank, let's be honest, is that you don't lose rank once you have it. You're guaranteed the reward at the end of the season. Now, if you are rank 6 or below at the end of the season, you won't get her guaranteed. It doesn't matter if you got as high as rank 1. When the season comes to a close, that's when they're going to calculate it. That's when they decide the reward you're going to get. Now, up in the corner, you can see the power cells that are tied to this particular tournament. When the season ends and those cells are awarded, when they are open, they've got a mix of items in there. They can give you upgrade ISO canisters. They can give you EISOs for PvP specifically. Things like the Veiled set, things like the Benevolent set. But they can also give you her abilities. Of course, if you get a duplicate, it's going to act just like a red canister. It's going to give you AP equal to half of the AP cost that it would be to buy the ability. So 50 for a 1-star, 200 for a 2-star ability. More importantly, if you are rank 6 or below, those power cells contain a chance at Agent 13 herself. Now, if you're joining this, if you're watching this video after the culmination of Season 5, the way the game currently stands, I can't tell you how to unlock her. I don't know how they're going to be made available. We have been assured that prior PvP characters will be made available. Those who remember Marvel Avengers Alliance 1 over on Facebook, the PvP characters rewarded at the end of the season would remain completely locked and exclusive to those who unlock them until the end of the next season, at which point they would be available for general purchase. Anybody could purchase them for command points. They didn't require real money. Whether or not that will hold true in this game, I don't know. We haven't seen anything yet. There are 3 PvP heroes who predate the global release of the game, and so we've been promised a shot at those. Based on Marvel Avengers Alliance 1, PvP characters will not be locked indefinitely, but for right now, treat them as if they are. Join us in Season 5. Attempt to get her now, because afterwards, we really don't have a guarantee as to how she's going to be unlocked. Let's go take a quick look over at her in the Heroes menu. She's all the way down at the bottom. Agent 13, Sharon Carter. Normally, in the last few videos I've given you and what the next few videos will contain, I try to have them at level 30, 2 or 3 stars, and then I take all the E-ISOs off. And the reason I do this is so that we can see their base stats as they are at high level, because it begins to really exaggerate the difference between those stats that we can't quite see at level 1. What we can tell looking at her here, 286 speed, 286 accuracy, 286 evasion, these are all identical stats. We don't know that they'll stay that way. But we can tell, most likely, that at level 30, those stats are going to be very similar. Just like Nebula showed in her video, it is possible at level 30 to have 2, even 3 stats completely identical if the character is balanced towards that. Her attack trail's a little bit behind it. I'm guessing that if you rank them somewhere, I kind of get the feeling that a lot of in-game stats fall in one of 5 value ranges. Think of them like the speeds. There is very low, there's average, there's high, there's very high. I'm expecting speed, accuracy, and evasion to be high, but not very high. I'm expecting her attack to be dead average. Nothing special about one way or another. Her health, very low. Her defense, low. But take a look at her leadership bonus. She gets a 10% bonus to defense and evasion for the team. These are purely defensive stats. They are going to keep the team alive. And as we start looking at her abilities and the way her passive works, and the way her innate works, I get the feeling that this is a character who shines best when outgunned. Many of her abilities really, if you're coasting through content, if you're playing through and it's easy and you're not taking a ton of damage, if your Wasp is staying alive through all 5 waves and you just don't need to heal her, Agent 13 is not going to stand out to you. If you're struggling, if you only have maybe half the characters unlocked, you're missing Wasp, you're missing Iron Fist. I have most of the characters. I don't have Luke Cage yet. I want him. I don't have him. I didn't have Iron Fist until I think I may have unlocked him 4 or 5 characters ago. Like, I didn't have Iron Fist until I had almost 30 of the characters unlocked. And I had already cleared all the way up through Chapter 3, Heroic, Unlock Nebula. And I had Nebula before I had Iron Fist. I did have Spider-Woman relatively early on. By the time I was level 30, I had her, and that made a big difference. But not everybody is going to get those key easy mode characters early on. And perhaps more importantly, once your team starts to hit 3-star, you're going to find that you need those characters much less. Every star level is about the equivalent of three character levels, and that can make a massive difference, and it really does. The stats have an impressive effect, even compared to level. Scrolling down, take a quick look at her passive. Her passive works with her resource. Now, you'll notice that she uses Insight. Insight is not what we would think of as a true resource. It builds up primarily through enemy actions. Now, she has a couple of ways to generate insight on her own. One of them is her passive, Proof of Preparation. She grants an immediate turn and resets all action cooldowns when insight becomes full. Most characters who use insight, and there are a few, Age of Ultron Black Widow, Heimdall. I'm sure that there are other characters. I believe one of the Visions may use it, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Insight is generated as enemies do their attacks. Free attacks don't quite generate as much. When Insight fills up, all of those Insight using characters get their free turn, but most of them also get a secondary effect. For Agent 13, it is the resetting of all action cooldowns. This is massively important. I have seen posts on the subreddit that Insight is broken. I don't know whether it's tied to a specific device. I don't know whether like Android or iOS is having issues but not the other. I can say that I've been able to use Age of Ultron Black Widow and her Insight bar has worked for me. but enough people have posted that they have seen specific issues with it, especially aiming at the extra turn, that I'm really hoping the insight mechanic isn't broken. Of her 8 moves, 6 of them have high multi-round cooldowns, 3 and 4 round cooldowns. And those are her best moves. She is, like most tacticians, designed for party support, and her moves are very powerful, but are designed to be reset as her insight comes up. This means that the more often that the enemy attacks, the more often she can use her most powerful abilities. If you've played the current Spec Ops, if you're farming Spec Ops 2, there are a couple of fights that no matter who you bring, they're a pain. The epic boss fights in general have, you're talking 2 waves of 3 enemy heroes, all of whom with a supervillain buff, all of whom who are taking very fast turns. It's not uncommon that in between an individual turn for one of your heroes, you're facing 5 attacks before that particular hero gets to go again. You may only take 1 or 2 attacks between the actions of each of your heroes, but you're almost never getting 2 actions of your own back to back. There are so many enemy attacks coming at you. When you're fighting an enemy group like that, insight shines. It fills rapidly, it grants a bonus attack action right then, right there. And please, please, Playdom, do not let this mechanic be broken when Agent 13 comes out, because it will cripple her completely. And to figure that out, we're going to take a look at her abilities. Again, we can't see what she's equipped with. We can't see trials. We can't see research. We can't see empower. That's okay. We can make some guesses at the end. When I normally go over EISO slots, we can take a look. We can try to figure out what she might have based on her stats. But let's take a look at the abilities, because these we can see. Whip Smarts. This is her very first ability. It's her first 1-star, and it's one of only 2 moves that doesn't have a cooldown. When you take her into combat, I would take one of those 2 moves. Both of them are melee unarmed. They have relatively similar damage. Whip Smarts, as we'll see as we get a little further in there, because her other ability is like her 4th or 5th. Whip Smarts has the slightly lower damage, but starting at 3-star, it becomes fast. Her other one stays at normal speed. Higher damage, normal speed versus lower damage and fast speed. That part, relatively fair trade-off. It's her debuffs that become important. She has 2 abilities that grant buffs to the team. Her other 6 abilities are debuff. Now, you have a lot of support tacticians available in the game. Most tacticians are going to be support tacticians of one way or another. Many of them debuff, many of them buff, but in almost every one of them, they have a focus. They do one or the other really, really well. And what Agent 13 has is she has some absolutely crippling debuffs, mostly single target debuffs. She tends to not spread them among the enemy team. She is very good at shutting down a powerful opponent. This is what I meant about going up against enemies who outgun you. Bring her against epic bosses. Bring her again. She might actually shine in PvP, to be perfectly honest. Her specialty, from what I can tell from her abilities, is going to be absolutely neutering a powerful enemy. It's going to be reducing them to about the level of a grunt in a lot of ways. And the way Whip Smarts does it is by shutting down their offense. Dazed, 80%. Demoralized, 80%. You're going to see that 80% on a lot of her abilities. This is where we start talking about that EISOs. The experimental set that grants you the plus 20% chance to apply a debuff, that may be required to get the most you can out of Agent 13. Not coordinating, not the ability to bypass protect per se, but almost exclusively it's going to be making sure she lands those powerful debuffs. We already saw that her accuracy is one of her highest stats. I'm hoping that what we see when we see her EISO slots for the first time is that we see 2 or even 3 yellow EISO slots. Accuracy to land these debuffs is going to be one of her absolutely key stats. Dazed, accuracy by 20%. Demoralized, the next attack's damage and accuracy by 30%. That cuts accuracy in half. That is a 50% accuracy penalty in a single attack. The 30% damage penalty, that's almost inconsequential compared to cutting somebody's accuracy in half. A lot of people, the first thing that's going to come to mind, of course, is Wasp. It's always going to be Wasp. Well, Wasp's evasion is so high that if you cut somebody's accuracy in half, they're not even going to glance her. It's not going to happen. But most tanks, even the defense tanks, tend to have acceptable evasion. If you drop this on somebody and you drop their accuracy by half, their odds of landing a crit is more or less gone. Their odds of landing a clean shot is maybe 50-50 against most heroes, even those with just average evasion stats. It's a good way to shut down somebody's offense. We'll find as we get over to it, her other move that doesn't have a cooldown is designed to shut down defense. They are counterparts. I would really only take one based on what you feel your team can use best. Personally, as we go through here, I'm going to make my recommendation on the second one just because it only affects a single target at a time. Her second 1-star ability, this one's interesting. Low damage, range projectile, slow speed. That speed can go up to normal, that's okay. Damage never gets very high. Cooldown starts at 3, can drop to 2. This is another one of those massive number of cooldown abilities. It's the major wounding and necrosis. Now, major wounding, like all the different variations on wounding, is a debuff that does damage based on the damage that she can deal. So even though the damage of this attack is low, major wounding is going to be a fairly powerful dot. And necrosis, removing and preventing healing, means that someone with the rejuvenating EISO set, or anybody who's not capable of using the cleansing buff or the remove all debuff. I can't remember it off the top of my head. We'll see on one of her moves later. Someone who can't remove necrosis is going to completely block any form of healing on them. This is a good way to shut down most of the healing abilities in the game. And this is where that accuracy comes in. I'm not certain, despite the way that it looks there in the picture, I'm not certain that this is going to be anything more than a single bullet, a single attack. And if it's only one shot, you're going to need that accuracy just to make sure that these two debuffs stick. Field recovery. This is the first of her 2 party support. The first of her 2 buff abilities. Restore, that's the one I was looking for. Removes and prevents mental, physical, and tactical debuffs. Right now, the primary way that you can get restored in your party is off of Iron Fist's group heal. This is a major heal, like Iron Fist's single target heal. Can be thrown on anybody. It does say one hero, it does not say herself. It does have a 4-turn cooldown. That cooldown only drops as low as 3. It does build up to a fast speed. And she's a fairly quick character. We've seen that her speed is one of her highest stats. Most of her abilities can be sped up to normal or fast. Any of them that start slow really tend to not stay that way. This is a character who between this and her insight is designed to gain her turns much faster. If you're going to use her as your major healer for the group, and it's definitely possible, you need her insight bar to fill up so that she can use field recovery more frequently. One bit of advice I would say is to pay attention to that insight bar. Save field recovery for when it's needed. Most likely you're going to use it on your tank. And if it looks like her insight bar is maybe 3/4 full or so, throw it anyway. Don't let it go to waste, because even though it has that massive cooldown, as soon as her bar finishes filling up, she's going to get this back. And it doesn't have a cost. Iron Fist's group-wide heal, that's got like a 3-turn cooldown by itself, and it does cost half of his spirit. Like, it has requirements to be... It's powerful, but it has requirements to throw it. Agent 13, throw this right before you know her insight is going to go off, and you guarantee that you're going to have it back in just a turn or two. Skip that long cooldown. Have your heal. That way you can You can have it available on demand as needed to deal with sudden bursts of damage, but still be able to use it intermittently to spread around very powerful single target heals. There's going to have to be a shift in the way that most people think in order to properly use Agent 13 in combat. And one of those is letting your heroes take damage. We'll see that as we get to her innate. We'll see why. And it's why I say that she's going to be best, at least in the beginning, against high-level, powerful content. This is a character who may be very, very good as we roll into Chapter 4, if Chapter 4 increases the difficulty again beyond Chapter 3. At least at the heroic level. Her last 1-star ability, Textbook Takedown. This is her other filler move. Speed is normal, speed stays normal. Melee unarmed. Damage rating isn't very high, does get up to 190. That's a little bit higher than that first ability of hers. Again, speed is normal, so that's the trade-off. The difference is in the debuffs. Stumbling for evasion minus by 20%, wide open, increased damage and accuracy of the next incoming attack by 40% against that target. You're dropping their evasion by 20% and increasing your accuracy by 40%, as well as the damage, of course. When I did the video on Nebula, I made a complaint about Nebula's last 2-star ability in that it applied wide open, and I didn't feel that a primary damage dealer, a character who's designed to be a damage dealer, should be the one applying wide open. Agent 13 is a great person to apply wide open with, because she is not designed to deal the damage for the team on her own. She is designed for battlefield control, shutting down your more powerful opponents by throwing out very powerful debuffs. Debuffs to shut down healing. Several of us have fought Tiger Shark in this last Spec Ops. Tiger Shark has those nasty follow-up attacks whenever somebody's affected by bleed, and he starts every turn, as long as he's wounded, by healing himself by 500 points. He has a lot of health. That means that he's going to last for several rounds, and that bleed damage can really stack up, because bleed is triggered not only by your own actions, but by sharp attacks like his bite and his follow-up. It's a fast way for him to burn through your tanks. Agent 13, fantastic for shutting him down. That range shot that applies necrosis blocks his healing. At the same time, her single target heal that she can throw on the tank can actually remove and prevent bleeding. Between the two of them, the things that make Tiger Shark dangerous in those fights are gone. So she may be interesting not just because of her individual abilities and because of the potential she has for limiting the damage dealt by one enemy, but by the sheer variety of debuffs that she can bring. Leveling up one character but multiple abilities for that character means you can really tailor her to specific fights where you know the enemies you're going to face. The first of her 2-star abilities, Icer Pistol. This, I've read the comics intermittently. I've followed them somewhat recently. The only place where I really recognize the phrase Icer is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Specifically, this popped up early on in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because, of course, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is meant to be more family-friendly than, say, the DC Universe, for the DC Cinematic Universe. And I think they were trying to avoid their team of crack S.H.I.E.L.D. agents killing every single person they came across. And so they developed a set of non-lethal pistols, and here we see the effect of that in one of our video games. Icer Pistol has a 4-turn cooldown. Take a look, that's not going down. Damage rating, 113, yeah, that's not going down either. But the speed will. Like most of her abilities that start slow, it's going to go all the way up to fast. She is not a character, when she's leveled up, who's going to take very long between her actions. Hindered. Speed by 20% and stun on the same attack. Not only are you lowering their speed, you're going to push them all the way to the back of the turn bar at the top of the screen, and then dramatically reduce the rate at which they make it back and get their action again. This, despite its 4-turn cooldown, is going to shut down a single character for a little while. If you decide to take Agent 13 into PvP, this might be a fun ability. If she's fast enough and gets her turn before a fairly powerful opponent on the enemy team, she can shut them down with a single one, stun and hindered. It's going to be a little bit before they get that first action. Give your team a chance to get that damage in there first. Unarmed Fury. One of two truly offensive damaging abilities that she has. Because the characters need to have some form of balance. They don't want to be locked into just one role. In her case, support tactician. She's got a couple of moves that do a fairly respectable amount of damage. Ironically, both of them are on long cooldowns. This one starts at 3, that never goes down. But despite that, take a look at that final damage at 4-star, even at 3-star. 293 on a normal speed attack, that's not bad. When you consider the exploit schemes, the plus 50% damage if they have a tactical debuff, how many debuffs is she applying? Well, she's got a few tactical. A few of those debuffs are tactical. A lot of them are physical. But a few of them are tactical. And exploit schemes is going to increase the damage of this already fairly powerful attack by 50%. Remember what I said about accuracy being a core stat to build up for her? Critical path. Act again immediately if the attack is a critical hit. We looked at Nova, we looked at Nebula, and a lot of the abilities we're seeing on those two videos, and that we'll see in a couple more videos as we go down the line. Opportunistic is somewhat common. A lot of heroes have it on at least one ability. Critical path, not quite so common. Spider-Man, Daredevil, these are the ones currently known for it. The ability to act again immediately if the ability is a critical hit, and most melee unarmed attacks, especially when they're kind of doing that color in 3 or 4 different parts of the screen up there, my guess is this is a multi-hit attack. I don't think this is going to hit just once. I would be really surprised if it does. Just pulling from the name, just pulling from what we kind of know about the game. And if that's the case, then that's going to make this move stand out, because Daredevil's critical path and I believe Spider-Man's critical path, both of them only use a single hit. If that one hit does not critical, they don't gain critical path. But Daredevil has a move with finesse, which recovers the resource cost if any one of the hits is a critical hit. Which means that if this is a multi-hit move, and critical path works like finesse, then if any one of those individual hits is a critical, she's going to get another turn again. I find myself really hoping that that's the case. If that's the case, this is going to be one of those core abilities to use Agent 13 as a burst damage dealer. Because of her cooldowns, it's going to have to be a burst damage. She can't use that move all that often. Great with her insight, though. Alright, Eye in the Sky. Last of her 2-star abilities. This is her second party buffing ability. Again, one hero. Agent 13 does not specialize in team-wide buffs like Age of Ultron Black Widow does. Gives one hero Overwatch, gives them improved shield. Compared to her heal, this one might see more use in PvP. People talk about Shield Breaker being a common thing. It's really only common because everybody uses Wasp. Aside from Wasp, who really isn't that big of a damage dealer, shields work really well in PvP. And Overwatch, the fact that Overwatch is on there, which only activates your free attack after an ally is attacked, if you bring both, if you're trying to bring her as a replacement for your primary healer, if you're bringing Eye in the Sky and Field Recovery, you're going to want to save Field Recovery for your tank and throw Eye in the Sky on your other person, your damage dealer, whenever it's off cooldown, to keep Overwatch up on them as often as possible for that bonus free attack. This game does stack sources of free attacks. So Overwatch on a character who already does things like free attacks, much like, say, Star-Lord, he'll get 2. He'll take 2 shots back to back. Again, yeah, builds up to fast, 4-turn cooldown. That cooldown does not drop. You're going to need to make use of her insight in order to make an effective use of Eye in the Sky. But because it's a shield and not a heal, you don't have to worry about overhealing, about healing somebody who's at 500 health for a 1500 point heal and wasting the majority of it. This can be thrown anytime that it's off cooldown. If she gets insight, if it recovers the cooldown, go ahead and throw it again. This is not one that you want to save for any specific point in time. Alright, 3-star ability. This will be the S rank reward. For the current PvP season, Season 5, she will get this for every person who is in S rank who unlocks her. They'll start with this move. This will be their default 3rd move for her until they go through and unlock some of her others. This is her big shiny red button. Remember how I kept saying most of her abilities that start at slow speed up? This is the one that does not. Starting damage rating 436. That goes up to 545. We were talking that one that's just under 300. We were saying that was high. Nope, this one is even higher. And perhaps more importantly is the Desperate Attack and Feedback. Desperate Attack, this attack deals up to 50% increased damage based on missing health. I do not yet know what the gates are for that. I don't know if it reaches 50% when you get to 30% health. I don't know if it reaches 50% when you get to 20% health. I have no idea. I do know from trying with a scaling ability like that with another character that even the slightest amount of loss will cause individual percentage increase. I'm talking specifically about the new version of Cap, Civil War Captain America. He has an ability that grants a defense buff to the party that scales between 20% and 70% as you lose health. And that may be a good measurement for Desperate Attack, because a loss of, in this case I'm going to use Moon Knight as an example. Moon Knight with his 4,400 health, by the time he had lost approximately 450 out of that, which is about 10%, maybe less than that. I don't know. He hadn't even lost that much health. So less than 10% loss in health, was already seeing about a 4 to a 5% increase in his defense, even beyond what the ability gave him. As soon as you start taking damage, moves like Desperate Attack or Civil War Captain America's defense buff, they start to scale up by individual percentage points. So it's not going to be 10%, then 20%, then 30%. It's possible to have it increase by 7%. Keep that in mind. Fire this off anytime that she's wounded, and you will see a damage increase. Feedback. This attack has plus 50% base damage, but damages the user as well. It will not KO the user. It cannot kill her to fire this move off. This is something that if you've got it, as soon as she's wounded, use it. As soon as she gets another turn through Insight, go ahead and use it again. We'll see with one of her other abilities, we want her to start dipping down below 50% health. We especially want her to hover at 50% health. Dropping below it based on Overcharge Pistol's feedback and maybe the occasional area of effect from enemy waves in PvE. And then to throw, say, her heal and pop herself back up above 50%. Or, perhaps better with her, is to equip the Rejuvenating EISO set and have that very small heal over time gradually build her back up after every time that she uses Overcharge Pistol. That may be the best combination for this individual ability. Do not heal her with her big heal. Save that for the tank. Another option is to simply shield her. Depending on the power of her free attack, use her shielding ability on herself, give her Overwatch. This will be a supporting source of damage for her. I would not be surprised if her free attack applies some kind of a debuff. Given her focus on debuffs, I wouldn't be surprised at all. But use that feedback to slowly burn down her health over time, causing her to do more and more damage with Overcharge Pistol. This is a powerful move. If her accuracy is good enough to land the shot, and we've already seen her accuracy is pretty high, this may be a one-hit kill for a lot of grunts. In PvP, And again, like I said with Nova, she's a PvP reward character. People are going to look at her and think PvP even more than they already do. Everybody gets her from PvP is going to have this. In PvP, build her up so that she can take that first hit. Give her barricading. Give her impenetrable. Don't worry about a counterattack. She's not really a damage dealing character. Why would you waste 6 of her EISO slots on free attacks? Build up her survivability, and as soon as she gets hit, fire this off. Fire it off at half health when that shield of hers triggers, and watch the damage that she can potentially deal. That goes over her abilities. That is primarily what we're able to see so far. We'll have some suggestions here in terms of builds instead of doing all of the EISOs. Instead, we're going to look at her innate, and we're going to look at her tactical, and then maybe toss around some ideas for how to use her. Hollow Decoy. This almost defines the phrase tactical for me. You're really going to want to pick and choose when to use this. It generates insight. It generates 15 insight. It is a very fast move. If you go into combat, and this is a viable strategy for her, I honestly believe that this will be a viable strategy for her, especially in PvP. Load her up with 3 abilities that all use cooldowns. She has 6 of them. Go in there, and any time that her insight fills up and refreshes everything, fire them all off again. This ability will generate 15 insight every time you use it and make one hero stealthy, which is a really unusual tactical. A lot of people are going to look at it and say it's really not that powerful because you have access to Veiled. Characters who make the best use of stealth can already stealth. Here's my suggestion for it. If you're running a tank and your tank gets badly wounded, this typically won't happen if you run Wasp, because if Wasp gets hit at all, she tends to die. I wouldn't be surprised if we see another evasion nerf on her, another incremental evasion nerf, so that she can be slowly chipped down like other tanks are by people consistently grazing her. If you're like me and you got really sick of Wasp and you wanted to try other tanks, use this to break protect. And anyone who has used Moon Knight will have seen this tactic, because right now he's the only tank who can do this. Stealthy removes the protect status. Or throw it on herself or your other damage dealer if protection drops, to remove them as a viable target from the battlefield until such time as they take an offensive action. If they need to sit back and let the rejuvenating EISO kick in, if they need to swap out with someone else, if you're trying to keep them alive, throw Hollow Decoy on them. Use it for what the name implies. Use it for defense. To keep a hero alive for that extra turn or two needed to build up her insight and get her the extra turn so that she can throw out that big heal. The reason that I say pair it with that and use her against, and the reason that I've repeatedly said use her against powerful opponents who can hurt you big time, epic bosses, the current Spec Ops, the real challenges, that's where she's going to shine, and part of that is right here in her innate, plus 20 insight whenever an ally drops below 50% health. To my knowledge, this is not going to be a one-time thing. They drop below 20%, she gets 20 insight, there's a good chance that that's going to immediately trigger an extra turn for her. And as soon as that does, it refreshes all the cooldown on her abilities and lets her throw that shield, that large heal, whatever you've decided to carry with her as a defensive move onto your ally. If you're going to use her to replace your team's healer, this is going to be how she does it. And this is what I meant early on about that paradigm shift in the way that you think. Right now, the way people tend to run with healers, with shields, with the rejuvenating EISO, is to keep the entire team topped up on health at all times, never let them drop low. What she's going to do is spend her time burning down the enemies. Go offense. Let your guys take some hits, especially your tank. Let him take some hits. Let him lose some life. Most of your defense-based tanks cannot be killed in a single hit. They often can't be killed in 4 or 5. Let them take some hits. let them drop below 50%, and trigger emergency services, build up her insight, and use this as a tactic to let her gain multiple turns, to trigger her insight several times. A powerful AoE that can hit your entire team. The shield agents in the current Spec Ops, their tendency to have, in the blasters and the bruisers, to have AoE attacks, or to throw those high explosive grenades that hit everybody as their first free action of the combat, of the wave, before they even take their regular action. When they drop all three of your team below 50% health in that first round or two, she gets 60 insight. We have had a small chance to preview her in that current Spec Ops. If you take Iron Man's path, she is an opponent. She's an opponent, I believe, in the first one, even like in Spec Ops 2-1, no matter which path you get. So you get to see her in combat, and one thing that you notice if you pay closer attention, emergency services triggers when she drops below 50% too. It does not require it to be a different hero. When it says an ally, it does include herself. And this means that allowing your team to take damage, which again sounds all kind of backwards, is going to actually be part of how she turns around and heals. I'm interested in trying her out. I'm interested in seeing if it works. So, a couple of quick build suggestions, things that I looked over. When it comes to abilities such as Whip Smarts and Textbook Takedown, take one or the other. Don't take both. This is not a girl who's designed to attack every round with a single ability that doesn't have a cooldown. Take one as a filler move if you don't feel like using her tactical, if you don't want to rely on her insight. Taking one of those against is probably going to be the best way to use her in easier content, where you're not being attacked multiple times, where it takes 2 or 3 waves for your insight to fill up. It gives her something to do in between those horrifically long cooldowns. But I still would take 2 cooldown based abilities in the other 2. You want pure offense? Go with Overcharged Pistol, and go with Icer Pistol. Sorry, not Icer Pistol. Go with Unarmed Fury. If you want to blow through a powerful, high-end boss, throw Unarmed Fury, aim for that critical path, then turn around and pull out Overcharged Pistol. I have my own idea of where this might be best at. One of the more frequently farmed levels right now is Spec Ops 1-3, the Yellow Jacket Epic Boss, and those who've done that know that, by and large, Crossfire is the more dangerous of the two in that fight because of his innate ability to bypass, protect, and stealth, and his high accuracy, high damage, single target attacks are very good at taking down even 3-star healers in the back. Open up against him. She'll have the class advantage because she's a tactician. Open up with Unarmed Fury, punch him in the face repeatedly. It does benefit from a tactical buff if anybody else throws on that tactical buff, or tactical debuff. Stumbling and Wide Open, both tactical debuffs. It is possible to have her take him down. I'm guessing, looking at the damage here, I would think she can probably take him down when she gets to about 3 stars or so in about 2 turns. Have her throw Textbook Takedown, put Stumbling and Wide Open on him. The very next turn that you get, go ahead and throw Unarmed Fury, get that 50% damage bonus plus critical path, aim for that crit. If you do it in that particular order, you're looking at the accuracy bonus from Wide Open plus the evasion penalty from Stumbling. Textbook Takedown will probably pair very, very powerfully with Unarmed Fury for that critical path and the exploit schemes. It grants both if used in that particular order. Both of those, by the way, are melee unarmed. They will both benefit from a speed bonus from Clobbered if you're running an unarmed team. Take advantage of that. Use them in that order. It's not a bad idea. It is possible then, of course, to use Unarmed Fury and its critical path to further reduce the cooldown of another ability just because it grants her multiple turns in a row. But her single biggest source of burst damage, and this is what I expect to pop up in PvP, is to have her go ahead and fire off her unarmed fury, and then immediately follow it up with overcharge pistol. In PvP, if you've equipped her with survival abilities, we've already seen that speed is one of her higher stats, as is accuracy. Um, it's very possible that she's going to get her turn before enemy players. And so if you're looking at a PvP build, you might do exactly that. Lead off with Textbook Takedown against a single opponent. Uh, Textbook Takedown, of course, it is a normal speed attack. She will need to get her second turn. Give her defensive stats. We don't know that her attack is high enough to truly justify coordinated. I said that Nova was a pretty good candidate for coordinated. You'll see some other characters as I go through them on Pure Theory Crafting who are good candidates for coordinated. Uh, I don't think Agent 13 will be. I think you're going to want the experimental EISO set. I think you're going to want barricading and probably, especially impenetrable if you're going PvP. I think rejuvenating will have a very good effect when paired with overcharge pistol. I would not give her veiled. She has the ability to stealth on command with her tactical. You will probably find yourself using her tactical to regenerate insight anyway. So I would skip coordinated. I would skip veiled. And I would focus on applying debuffs. I would focus on giving her survivability. That shield at 50% health, that might be fun. Because it drops below 50% health, that safety measure kicks in, and then it triggers her bonus 20 insight. Don't be afraid to follow up with that overcharge pistol. Even if it does damage to you, it can't kill you. And in PvP, where the damage is so high, the next attack could. So, a high-powered a high-powered overcharge pistol could be the finishing move that you need before Agent 13 herself goes down. Most support tacticians in PvP tend to not last beyond just a couple of hits in the first place. I'm looking at you, Star-Lord, but I'm also looking at you, Age of Ultron Black Widow, MODOK, Captain Marvel, all the different support tacticians currently available as choices. They're built for throwing out buffs, for throwing out debuffs, for battlefield control, but they're really not meant to take hits in the way that certain other characters can. Alright, so let's go ahead. Let's not take this much longer. Let's wrap this up. Agent 13, PvP reward for PvP Season 5, not currently released. We've touched on some of the potential EISOs for her. There's been a long rambling discussion on her different abilities. We have looked at them. They don't necessarily have any true new mechanic, but I believe the way that they function and the way that she is going to function, you're going to want to see that paradigm shift in your thinking. Don't stress having all of your heroes topped off all the time. Let them go ahead and take the hits. Don't spend your time on defensive moves. Go ahead and just burn down the enemies, take the hits as they come, and let them cause Agent 13 to become an absolute speed demon with extra turns and all kinds of fast moves, and throwing out big, powerful, massive cooldown effects consistently. Keep in mind that her focus is debuffing a single target or buffing a single ally. She is not to be substituted in place of Age of Ultron Black Widow or Captain Marvel or MODOK, who are team-wide buff support. Her buffs are powerful. Her buffs are aimed at one opponent at a time. Her debuffs, sorry. Aimed at one opponent at a time. That is how I would use her. I have a character who I want to try pairing her with. That character will be the topic of an upcoming Pure Theory Crafting. There is one more of these videos to go through before we get to them, and that will be Moon Knight, who was the topic of my 4th Pure Theory Crafting post. There is a post for Agent 13. I have already looked at these abilities. I have put them down on, I guess, the closest you can say to being on paper. It is on the Marvel Avengers Alliance 2 Reddit. I will, provided I remember, include the link below so that you can go straight to it, take a look, see what people have commented, add your own comments. This is a theory crafting exercise. I want to see people throw back some ideas. I want to see ability combinations. I want to see people start to put together how they might use Agent 13. As always, the true purpose of the Pure Theory Crafting videos and posts is to raise excitement about characters that people don't have or don't often use, to say, hey, this interests me, let me try this out, and then give that feedback back to the community as a whole and see if we can really bring to life the diversity that Marvel Avengers Alliance 2 offers, not just within the number of characters it has, but the abilities that each character can bring to the battlefield. Let's go ahead and wrap it up there. I've stood on my soapbox long enough. A little bit of quick shout outs here. I'm going to throw another quick shout out back to Exodex. Much of the structure of these videos, any volume control issues that we have on this, these are due to his help, his advice. Another quick shout out back to the Reddit as a whole, to all the people who have thrown out their comments, to people who have thrown out their suggestions, and their, more importantly, their encouragement towards single characters like this. The people who get excited when they see a post on Agent 13, even if they aren't contributing a build, they're raising excitement for the character and encouraging people to try them when they come out. That's who I'm giving my props to. That's who this is supposed to be for. Let this be a resource, and let people want it as a resource because they want to see these characters in action. Until next time, until I'm back with that Moon Knight video, this is iHoagland. I will catch you guys later. I am out.